Most people don't realize how close they live to the edge. The numbers are painful, but they're real. The average American can survive just 17 days without a paycheck. 17 days before panic begins. 17 days before savings evaporate. 17 days before life becomes a negotiation. What to pay, what to postpone, what to let break, because you can't fix everything at once. And behind those 17 days is something deeper, something nobody wants to admit. Most people aren't living a life. They're maintaining one. Barely. Meanwhile, the wealthy live on a different timeline. If they stop working tomorrow, their lives would not change next week, next year, or even next decade. They could disappear into another country for 20 years, and their lifestyle wouldn't notice. Their bills would still be paid. Their investments would still grow. Their money would still move, earn, multiply, and none of it requires their daily presence. That's the real gap in society. Not income, not intelligence, not even opportunity. The real gap is time. The rich buy decades. Everyone else rents days. And here's the truth that no school, no job, and no well-meaning parent ever teaches us. Time is the real currency of life, and money is just the tool we use to unlock it. If you misunderstand money, you misunderstand time. And if you misunderstand time, you misunderstand freedom. This is why Rich Dad, Poor Dad isn't just a finance book. It's a psychology book, a mindset book, a book about two different realities living inside one child. One father believed in security. One believed in freedom. One taught fear, one taught understanding, and the child grew up realizing that he wasn't choosing between two fathers, he was choosing between two futures. Think about your own upbringing. Think about the messages you heard about money. Were you told to be careful, to avoid risks, to be satisfied with enough? Were you taught that money was dangerous, unpredictable, hard to earn, easy to lose? Were you taught that success belonged to other people, people with more talent, more education, more luck, more something? Most people are not raised to build wealth. They are raised to survive. And survival teaches you to think small, act small, fear big, and hope someone else will eventually take care of you. But wealth demands the opposite. Wealth demands understanding, not fear. Curiosity, not caution. Proactivity, not waiting. Wealth requires you to look at money not as something you chase, but as something you design. This is why the average person works 40 hours a week for 40 years and still ends up worried about retirement. Not because they didn't work hard. They worked incredibly hard, but they played a game without knowing the rules. They traded time for money, while the wealthy traded money for time. Let's slow down and ask something uncomfortable. When did you first learn that money could work for you? Most people never learned that. They learned that they must work for money, that their value is tied to their job, that their future is tied to their employer, that their safety is tied to their salary. This creates a cycle that feels stable on the surface but suffocating underneath. Wake up, work, come home, rest just enough to repeat it tomorrow. Buy nicer things to feel progress. Take on more debt to feel successful. Feel guilty for wanting more. Feel ashamed for struggling. Feel stuck, but tell yourself, this is normal. It's not normal. It's common. That's very different. Rich Dad saw through the illusion early. He understood that the real danger wasn't failing. It was living a life controlled by fear. Fear of not having enough. Fear of job loss. Fear of taking risks. Fear of trying something new. Fear of looking foolish. Fear of losing money. Fear of wanting more. Fear of believing you deserve more. Fear becomes the foundation of the entire financial identity. And when fear sits in the driver's seat, you will always choose the safest road, even if that road leads nowhere. Now imagine you're 9 years old and you're watching two fathers solve money problems in opposite ways. One says, work harder. The other says, think differently. One says, be grateful for any paycheck you get. The other says, build something that pays you whether you're working or not. One sees money as the master, the other sees money as the servant. Over time, you begin noticing something. The father who fears money always needs more of it. The father who understands money never seems rushed by it. The poor mindset runs out of breath. The rich mindset runs out of nothing. But here's the part most people overlook. It's not the money itself. It's the story. A story you didn't choose. A story you inherited. A story shaped by your parents' stress, their beliefs, their arguments, their limitations, their generation, their experience. And you repeat that story automatically unless you consciously choose a new one. Think about the last major financial decision you made. Did you make it from confidence or fear? Did you choose growth or comfort? Did you say, "I can't afford that," or "How can I afford that?" Did you think of opportunities or risks? Did you imagine what could go right or what might go wrong? Your answers reveal which father is living inside your mind today. This is the real essence of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Two voices compete for your future. One keeps you in the rat race. The other opens the door to freedom, but you can only follow one. Let's take this deeper. Imagine two people with the exact same salary. One invests a portion of their money into assets, things that grow, produce, and return value forever. The other person spends almost everything and calls their home, their car, their phone, and their lifestyle assets. Years pass. On the outside, they look identical. Same clothes, same job, same stability. But on the inside, one person is quietly building time. The other is quietly losing it. This is the illusion of equality that hides in plain sight. Two people can make the same money but live completely different financial lives. Because wealth isn't measured by income, it's measured by how long you can sustain your life without working. Rich Dad taught that from the beginning. Money isn't about having more, it's about needing less. It's about building systems so strong that even if you stopped contributing, they wouldn't stop growing. But most people never reach that point. Not because they're doomed, not because they're incapable, but because no one ever explains how wealth is actually built. They hear invest, but don't know where. They hear build assets, but don't know which. They hear create passive income, but don't know how. They hear financial freedom, but don't know the path. And here's the truth. Wealth isn't complicated. It's just unfamiliar. For people raised on the poor dad mindset, everything about money feels like a risk. For people raised on the rich dad mindset, everything about money feels like a skill. Risk or skill, fear or knowledge, panic or preparation. 17 days of survival or decades of freedom. A different mindset leads to a different destiny. And everything changes the moment you realize this one sentence. You were never meant to work for money your whole life. You were meant to build something money works inside of. This is where transformation begins. The moment you realize money is supposed to work for you, not the other way around, your entire relationship with life begins to shift. You start noticing how most people move through the world with a subtle heaviness, like they're always carrying something they can't put down. It's not the job, it's not the bills, it's the pressure of feeling that if they stop for even a moment, everything could fall apart. That pressure becomes the background noise of modern life. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You notice how people schedule their days around their pay cycle, how their dreams shrink to match their savings, how they avoid conversations that might reveal financial stress, how their faces tighten when unexpected expenses show up, how they celebrate weekends not because they love rest, but because they're exhausted from buying survival with their time, how they wait for retirement as if it's a rescue mission instead of a milestone. Rich Dad understood something subtle. Most people don't work jobs, they work fears. Fear of not paying rent, fear of letting their family down, fear of falling behind, fear of losing comfort, fear of looking irresponsible, fear of feeling insecure, fear of having to start over late in life, fear of being judged for failing financially. And because fear drives them, they make decisions based on escape, not vision. They look for something predictable, not something freeing. They cling to a paycheck because it feels safer than confronting the unknown. But here's the irony. The paycheck is the most fragile part of their life. Lose it, and the entire structure collapses. Keep it, and the structure never grows. This is the silent trap. The poor and middle class organize their whole lives around income. The wealthy organize their lives around assets. Income comes from your effort. Assets come from your understanding. Income stops when you stop. Assets grow even when you don't. And one of the most painful truths to accept is this: you can work your entire life and still not own anything that sets you free. Rich Dad wanted Robert to understand this early. He didn't want him to become dependent on a salary because dependency breeds fear, and fear makes you controllable. A person who fears losing their job will tolerate almost anything: low raises, long hours, disrespect, stress, stagnation, because they're protecting the little stability they have. But stability is not the same as freedom. Take a moment here. Ask yourself gently, are you living a stable life or a free one? They're not the same. A stable life is controlled by circumstances. A free life is designed from within. A stable life depends on a paycheck. A free life depends on assets. A stable life is a fragile ecosystem. A free life is anti-fragile. It gets stronger with time. And the truth is, most people don't choose stability. They default into it. They follow the script handed to them. Go to school, get a job, work hard, retire eventually. But they never stop to question whether the script matches the life they want. This brings us to one of the most overlooked insights in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Education and intelligence are not the same. Poor Dad was educated, highly. Degrees, titles, achievements. But financial intelligence is a different language entirely. It's about patterns, awareness, understanding incentives, seeing possibilities, recognizing the flow of money in and out of your life, knowing where to stand so money moves toward you instead of away from you. And that's why two people with equal intelligence can end up with completely different financial destinies. Because the poor work for money, the middle class work to maintain lifestyle, but the rich work to acquire control. Control of income, control of time, control of decision-making, control of risk, control of the future. Let's go further into the psychology of this. Have you noticed how many people buy things to feel progress? The new phone, the new car, the upgraded apartment. Not because they need them, but because it's the easiest way to feel financially successful in a world where they don't actually control their finances. Consumption becomes emotional anesthesia. It numbs the deeper fear of never actually moving forward. Rich Dad didn't judge people for this. He understood why they did it. When you don't understand how wealth works, you try to feel wealthy in the only way you know, by buying things. But wealth isn't what you buy. Wealth is what buys you time. Think of a person buying a brand new car. It looks like success. It glows. It feels good. People compliment it. But underneath that shine is a quiet truth. That car is not an asset. It's a monthly obligation, a time debt, a slice of every paycheck that vanishes before they even receive it, a commitment that forces them to keep working at the same pace just to maintain what they already bought. The rich aren't against nice things. They just approach them differently. They buy luxuries from their assets, not their income. They let their money buy their lifestyle, so their time remains untouched. This is something schools never teach. They teach how to earn money, not how to hold it. How to calculate equations, not how to calculate opportunity cost. How to prepare for exams, not how to prepare for compound growth. How to follow instructions, not how to follow intelligence. Rich Dad taught Robert that before you learn how to earn more money, you must learn how money behaves. Money flows. It escapes from weak hands and grows in strong ones. It rewards clarity, punishes confusion, and amplifies whatever mindset you place behind it. It's a mirror revealing who you are long before it reveals what you have. And one of the biggest mindset divides is this. Poor mindsets focus on income. Rich mindsets focus on cash flow. The poor want raises. The rich want returns. The poor want security. The rich want leverage. The poor think about today. The rich think about decades. Let's make this visual. Picture your life as a tree. Your job is the fruit, visible, temporary, seasonal. Your assets are the roots, hidden, quiet, foundational. Most people water the fruit. The wealthy water the roots. This simple shift changes everything, because when roots grow, fruit becomes effortless. Now, look at your own financial life. Most people's roots are thin. Almost all their money comes from one branch, employment. But one storm, a layoff, illness, recession, downsizing, and the whole tree collapses. Not because they weren't hardworking, but because they didn't diversify where their life draws strength from. This is where assets come back into the story. People misunderstand assets. They think an asset is something expensive, something luxurious, something symbolic. But real assets are quiet. They sit in the background. They grow when you're not looking. They pay you when you sleep. They compound in silence. They expand your life without demanding your time. Rich Dad taught Robert the simplest definition. An asset puts money into your pocket. A liability takes money out. But the deeper meaning is this. Assets give you time. Liabilities steal it. Everything you buy either buys you freedom or buys you another financial obligation. That's the truth hiding beneath every purchase. Most people accidentally collect obligations their whole lives. The rich intentionally collect freedom. And that brings us to a powerful turning point, the rat race. The rat race isn't a job. The rat race isn't society. The rat race is a mindset. It's the belief that money must be earned through effort. The belief that income must increase for life to improve. The belief that success comes from grinding harder. The belief that survival requires constant hustle. But the real rat race isn't external. It's internal. It's the loop of fear and desire. Fear of not having enough. Desire for more. Fear again. Desire again. Round and round. This is why people buy more when they earn more. Why people take on bigger debt as their paycheck grows. Why people feel emptier even as they acquire more things. They aren't feeding wealth. They're feeding emotions. Rich Dad broke this loop early by removing the boys' pay. He forced them to stop thinking like employees. He forced them to ask better questions. He forced them to look for opportunities, not wages. He forced them to grow skills, not dependence. And that's the uncomfortable truth. You cannot build wealth with an employee mindset. You cannot escape the rat race while fearing risk. You cannot create freedom while craving stability. You cannot grow while clinging to what feels safe. The wealthy are not reckless. They are educated. They don't seek danger. They study it. They don't gamble. They understand probability. They don't hope. They prepare. And that preparation creates calm, a quiet confidence, a slow-burning stability that no job can provide. Imagine waking up tomorrow and knowing if your job disappeared, your life would not crumble. If your expenses increased, your peace would remain the same. If emergencies happened, you'd handle them without fear. If opportunities showed up, you'd have the resources to act. That is what wealth actually feels like. Not dramatic, not loud, not glamorous, just peaceful, just stable, just free. And here is the final realization Rich Dad wanted Robert, and now you, to understand. Money is not the goal. Time is. Money is not the reward. Freedom is. Money is not the finish line. Control of your life is. And the moment you begin building assets, however small, you begin moving from the world of survival into the world of choice. You begin planting roots that grow beyond your lifetime. You begin creating stability for your future children. You begin building a foundation that no economic shift can erase. You begin stepping into the rarest experience of all, the ability to live on your own terms. And that is the greatest wealth anyone can build. Something powerful begins to happen the moment you question the script you inherited. You start to notice how much of your financial behavior never belonged to you in the first place. It belonged to the people who raised you, the environment you grew up in, the culture you absorbed, the fears you witnessed, the comments you overheard, the choices you saw modeled. You don't just inherit eye color or personality traits. You inherit beliefs about money, silence around money, and wounds around money. Rich Dad understood that money is generational, not just generational wealth, but generational mindset. If you grow up hearing, "we can't afford that," those words shape your internal ceiling. If you grow up watching arguments about bills, those moments become emotional markers. If you grow up seeing adults fight stress with work, you learn that effort is the solution to everything. If you grow up seeing survival, you normalize survival. But at some point in life, you reach a crossroads. One road repeats your financial ancestry. The other road rewrites it. And this is where Rich Dad's philosophy becomes more than financial advice. It becomes identity work. Because wealth is not just built with money, it is built with self-permission. Permission to think differently. Permission to break family patterns. Permission to want more without guilt. Permission to stop apologizing for ambition. Permission to outgrow beliefs that no longer serve you. This is the part most people never reach, not because they can't, but because they stop themselves before they begin. They tell themselves they're too late, too early, too old, too young, too unprepared, too uninformed. But those barriers are illusions built from years of inherited fear. Rich Dad taught that learning is far more valuable than earning. Not theoretical learning, not classroom learning, but experiential learning. Learning by doing. Learning by failing. Learning by adjusting. Learning by seeing the world not as a closed system, but as a landscape of opportunities. And once you understand the landscape, something invisible becomes visible. You begin noticing the structures of wealth that are hidden in plain sight. You begin seeing how businesses operate even when the owner isn't present. You see how property generates income even when no one is home. You see how digital assets make money while you sleep. You see how intellectual property pays its creator long after the work is done. You see how investments expand through compounding, not effort. You see how wealthy people position themselves where money naturally flows instead of chasing it. This shift is not glamorous. It's quiet. It's internal. It's the moment you stop asking, "How do I earn more?" and start asking, "How do I build something that earns for me?" To the untrained eye, this looks like confidence. But it's not confidence. It's clarity. The wealthy aren't fearless. They're informed. They don't take random risks. They take calculated ones. They don't wait for permission. They create their own options. Now let's talk about something uncomfortable but necessary. Most people do not fail due to lack of opportunity. They fail due to emotional patterns around money that were never unpacked. If money made you anxious as a child, you avoid it as an adult. If money symbolized conflict, you detach from it. If money represented stress, you convince yourself you don't care about it. If money was tied to insecurity, you think wanting it makes you selfish. If money was scarce, you hold it too tightly. If money was unpredictable, you overspend when you have it. If money was inconsistent, you accept any job that offers stability, even at the cost of your potential. Rich Dad saw this clearly. Your relationship with money is the blueprint through which you build your life. You can't build a free life with a fearful blueprint. The foundation will crack every time. So he taught Robert something the school system never did, the emotional side of finance. He taught him to observe his reactions, pay attention to discomfort, notice assumptions, follow fears to their source. He taught him that money magnifies who you are, not what you have, and unless you understand yourself, you will sabotage your own financial possibilities. This is why so many people say they want wealth, but unconsciously avoid it. They chase small comfort because they fear large responsibility. They cling to security because they fear uncertainty. They want freedom but repeat habits that guarantee dependence. Breaking this cycle requires self-honesty, one of the hardest forms of intelligence. It requires looking at your financial life without excuses and asking, what part of this is my belief system repeating itself? Because your beliefs are the gatekeepers of your future. They decide what opportunities you see, what risks you take, what moves you make, and what life you create. Now let's talk about something practical and psychological that Rich Dad understood deeply: leverage. Not leverage in the risky, aggressive sense, but leverage in the strategic sense. Leverage is the tool that turns effort into impact. For poor and middle-class mindsets, effort equals income. For wealthy mindsets, leverage equals income. Here's what leverage really means. Your money is working, your ideas are working, your systems are working, your skills are working, your assets are working, other people's expertise is working, other people's time is working, other people's platforms are working. Not because you're using them, but because you're collaborating with them. Wealthy people understand that they alone cannot create the life they want. Not with one job, not with one income stream, not with one skill. Wealth comes from building a network of forces working in your favor even when you're resting. This is why an employee mindset and a wealth mindset experience risk differently. To an employee mindset, risk means losing money. To a wealth mindset, risk means losing time. That distinction changes everything. There are people who will spend 40 years avoiding financial risks and accidentally take the biggest risk of all, never building anything that sets them free. This is why Rich Dad focused so heavily on assets, not because assets look impressive, but because assets create options. Assets create breathing room. Assets create time. Assets create independence. Assets create peace. Assets unlock the ability to say no. And the ability to say no is one of the purest forms of freedom. Let's bring this into real life. Imagine two people receive an extra $500 at the end of the month. One sees it as spending money, the other sees it as seed money. One shortens their time, the other lengthens it. One moves closer to obligation, the other moves closer to freedom. Over time, this small difference becomes enormous. 10 years of consumption leads to nothing. 10 years of investing transforms everything. This is the part of the story most people underestimate. Wealth rarely arrives through dramatic leaps. It arrives through consistent decisions that compound quietly. It's not the big wins, it's the small wins multiplied by time. Rich Dad knew this, and that's why he taught Robert one of the most powerful truths. You don't build wealth by making more money. You build wealth by keeping more money and directing it wisely. Most people make money and release it immediately. The wealthy make money and assign it a job. $1 can buy a coffee, or it can buy a tiny fraction of your future. Most people never realize their dollars are employees. They are tiny workers, each with the power to make more workers. And one day, an army of these workers can return your time to you. This is why wealthy people obsess over their asset column, because the asset column is the only part of your life that gives you more hours than you started with. Everything else takes hours away. Now let's close the loop. We began with the idea of time freedom, 17 days versus decades, fear versus understanding, survival versus choice. And now you can see why. Time freedom isn't accidental. It isn't lucky. It isn't random. It's built the same way houses are built, the same way health is built, the same way identity is built, step by step, layer by layer, decision by decision. Time freedom is built by embracing financial literacy, questioning the beliefs that limit you, reshaping the narrative you inherited, studying the game instead of fearing it, and building a life where money works so your mind and heart can rest. This is the part nobody teaches you when you're young. This is the part that schools ignore. This is the part society hopes you never understand. Because people who reclaim their time become ungovernable. They no longer live at the mercy of employers. They no longer negotiate their worth. They no longer apologize for wanting ease, freedom, or options. They live with intention. They move with clarity. They make decisions from abundance, not fear. They design a life instead of inheriting one. And you right now, listening to this, are standing at the exact place where every wealthy person begins, the moment they decide they are done trading their entire life for a paycheck. If you take anything from this message, let it be this. Money is not the prize. Time is the prize. Money is not the freedom. Understanding is the freedom. Money is not the legacy. Mindset is the legacy. You get one life, one brief moment on this planet, and you deserve a life not ruled by panic, pressure, or survival. You deserve a life with space to breathe, space to grow, space to choose, space to live on your own terms. And that life starts the moment you stop fearing money and begin learning how it works. If this message opened something inside you, let me know. I'd love to take you deeper next time.